Find somewhere else to die, Mom. You're just an extra mouth now. Those were my son's words on Christmas Eve, spoken with the false gentleness of someone convincing himself cruelty was kindness. His hand patted mine like I was a child to be hushed, not a mother who had given him life. The words seared into me harder than any winter chill outside. I was 71 years old, dressed in my best red sweater, a plate of ginger cookies cooling. Back at home, and instead of sharing Christmas dinner with my family, I found myself in the fluorescent-lit lobby of a nursing home that smelled faintly of bleach and despair. The snow outside swirled heavy against the windows, muffling the world in white silence. But inside, the silence was of another kind, the silence of abandonment. I looked at David, my only child, the boy I carried for 9 months, the boy I nursed through sickness, the boy whose school plays I never missed. And now, this same boy, grown into a man with tired lines across his forehead, was sliding a clipboard toward the receptionist as if checking me into a hotel. I thought we were just visiting, I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of betrayal. David avoided my eyes. It's temporary. Just until we figure things out. Figure things out. Words that sounded reasonable, almost merciful, until you felt the weight of the suitcase at your feet, packed by hands that weren't your own. I looked down at that frayed leather handle. Inside were the pieces of my life David deemed sufficient to take. A few cardigans, my Bible, a photograph of his father. Everything else, decades of sacrifice, heirlooms, laughter, Mark's tools, my mother's dishes, remained in the house I had built a life in. David, I whispered, my throat dry. You can't just leave me here. His jaw tightened. I don't have a choice, Mom. You can't take care of yourself anymore. Rebecca and I. He stopped, then sighed. It's just better this way. Rebecca, my daughter-in-law, the woman who wrinkled her nose at my cooking, sighed when I asked for help carrying groceries, once called me old baggage under her breath. I had brushed it off then, not wanting to cause trouble. Now I wondered if she'd been planning this very moment all along. The receptionist smiled politely, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. We'll make sure she's comfortable, sir. You can finish the paperwork in the office. David nodded, relief visible, as though he'd just unloaded a burden. I wanted to scream, to pound the desk, to drag my suitcase back into the snow. But my body betrayed me. My legs felt weak, my voice caught in my throat, my hands trembled too much to hold on to anything. So instead, I sat quietly in the vinyl chair they offered me, the Christmas wreath on the wall mocking me with its cheer. The first night was the worst. I lay in a narrow bed, the sheets stiff and tucked too tight, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzing down the hall. Somewhere a man coughed, deep and rattling. Somewhere else, a woman cried out in her sleep. I clutched my pillow and whispered into the dark, I don't belong here. Memories rushed in, uninvited. Christmases passed when Mark, my late husband, strung lights across the porch, when David tore open presents with wide-eyed glee, when the house smelled of cinnamon and pine. That house had been my pride, my fortress, my legacy. Now, it was slipping through my fingers. The next morning, I asked the nurse how long I'd be staying. She gave me a kind but vague smile. As long as your family decides, dear. My family, my son. The boy I had worked double shifts for, who I had sacrificed new shoes for so he could have books, who I had shielded from every storm I could. And he had left me here. On Christmas. I tried to adjust. Meals at set times, tasteless but filling. Bingo nights, chair yoga, volunteers singing carols in weak voices. The staff were kind but distant. They had so many of us to care for, and none of the care was the kind a mother craved. Every time the phone rang at the nurse's station, Every time the sliding doors hissed open, I looked up, hoping it was David, hoping he'd realized what he had done, hoping he'd come to take me home. Weeks passed. He didn't come. When he finally visited, it was February. He arrived in a rush, his tie askew, Rebecca waiting in the car. "I can't stay long," he muttered, kissing my cheek as though the gesture could erase months of silence. I searched his face for the boy I once knew. Instead, I saw a man burdened, not by grief, but by guilt. "David," I whispered, "why did you do this?" He shifted, eyes darting. "You need care, Mom, more than I can give. And the house, it's too much for you." The house. My sanctuary. "What about it?" I asked, my chest tightening. He hesitated, then sighed. "Rebecca and I are making changes. Renovating. It'll be better for all of us in the long run. Renovating." A polite word for erasing. Tears pricked my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Instead, I nodded. "I see." When he left, I sat in the common room with my knitting untouched in my lap. My heart hardened like ice, because I understood then. This wasn't about care. It wasn't about my well-being. It was about the house. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the lights. My son had abandoned me. My daughter-in-law had pushed me aside. My home, the one I worked and bled for, was being stripped away. But as I lay there, something stirred inside me. Not despair, not grief, resolve. They thought I was powerless. That age had softened me, that neglect had broken me, that betrayal had silenced me. They were wrong, because I still had my mind. I still had my memories. I still had the strength of decades of survival, and I would use every ounce of it. One day, I vowed, David would walk into that house and realize the truth. It was not his. It never would be. Because I was already weaving the plan that would make him tenant to his own mother. And when that day came, he would learn the hardest lesson of his life. By August, my notebook was fat with ink. Every word David had spoken, every insult Rebecca had hissed, every attempt to make me sign away my life. I had it all. Agnes would sit with me while I wrote, her eyes glittering with approval. "You're building a case," she said once, her voice proud. "One day, you'll drop it on their heads like a hammer." She wasn't wrong. Rebecca finally visited in person that September. The staff whispered. They'd never seen her before. She swept in wearing perfume that clung to the walls, her heels striking like bullets against the floor. "Mother," she said, the word dripping with disdain. "You look comfortable." I rose slowly from my chair, leaning on my cane. "Comfort isn't the word I'd choose." Her lips curved in a mocking smile. "Well, it's better than rattling around in that big house, isn't it? David and I are making it beautiful again. You should be grateful." Grateful. The word burned. "That house was my life," I whispered. "My husband's life. You didn't build it." Her eyes narrowed, her voice sharp. "You're old, Mother. Things change. Get used to it." Then she turned on her heel and left, her perfume hanging in the hallway like smoke. I sank back into my chair, trembling, but not from weakness, from rage. That night, I opened my notebook and wrote in block letters, September 14th. Rebecca came, called me old, erased my life. She will regret this. Their arrogance became my weapon. David visited again in October, folder in hand. His forehead glistened with sweat, his hands shaky. "Mom, these are just utilities and tax forms," he said, sliding papers toward me. I smiled sweetly. "Of course, dear. But shouldn't Rebecca sign first?" She's the one who wants it so badly. He blinked, caught off guard. That's not… I cut him off gently. It must be exhausting, David. Always protecting her. Always cleaning up her mess. I do hope she appreciates it. The muscles in his jaw twitched. He shoved the papers back into the folder and left. Without another word. That night, I overheard them arguing in the hallway. She's stalling, David hissed. She knows something, Rebecca snapped. Then make her sign. I'm trying. I smiled into the dark. Cracks were widening, and I was the wedge. By Halloween, the nursing home halls filled with children in costumes. I sat handing out candy, watching their laughter light the dim corridors. One little girl, dressed as an angel, leaned close and whispered, "Are you sad, Grandma?" I smiled faintly. Not sad, child. Just waiting. Waiting for what? For justice. She skipped away, her wings fluttering, and I sat back in my chair, my heart steady. Justice was coming. Not loud, not rushed, but sure. In November, the staff put up paper turkeys and orange garlands. The cafeteria smelled of reheated turkey and boxed stuffing. I watched other families gather around their loved ones, bringing laughter and flowers. David visited just before Thanksgiving. His face was drawn, his tie askew. "Mom, we need to settle some things before the end of the year," he said quickly. I folded my knitting carefully. "Settle what?" He pulled out yet another folder. Utilities, property taxes, inheritance adjustments. "Rebecca and I can't keep covering everything. We need you to… To what?" I asked softly. His eyes darted away. "To sign, Mom, to make this easier for everyone. For everyone." Studied him, the twitch at his temple, the impatience in his eyes. He wasn't doing this for me. He was doing it for her. "David," I said gently, "do you remember the Thanksgiving when your father carved the turkey with the dull knife, and it slipped?" He blinked, caught off guard. "What?" He laughed. "You laughed. The whole table laughed." We ate late that night, but it was the happiest meal I can remember. That house holds those memories, David. Not just walls. Not just bills. He shifted in his chair, uncomfortable. "Mom, times change. We need to be practical." I met his eyes steadily. Practicality without heart is cruelty. His face tightened. He shoved the papers back into the folder. "I don't have time for this." When he left, Linda the nurse slipped into the room, her eyes sharp. "He's pushing again?" "Yes," I whispered. "And this time, I think he's desperate." Linda's lips curved into a knowing smile. "Good. Desperation makes people sloppy." Rebecca came in person again 2 weeks later. She leaned in the doorway of my room, her arms crossed, her perfume choking the air. "Still holding on, I see," she said coolly. I looked up from my knitting. "To what?" "To relevance, to dignity, to that house. It's only a matter of time, you know." I folded the yarn neatly, set it aside, and met her gaze. "Time has always been my ally, Rebecca, not yours." Her smile faltered. "You think… You're clever," she snapped. "You're not. You're old, weak, forgotten." I tilted my head slightly. "If I'm forgotten, why are you standing here wasting your breath?" Her cheeks flushed crimson. She spun on her heel and stormed away, muttering curses under her breath. Agnes, sitting nearby, chuckled. "You hit a nerve." "Don't pity her," I whispered. "She'll need no pity when the trap closes." My allies grew. Agnes gave me her word. Linda documented David's visits, keeping quiet records of the dates, times, and his frustrated attempts to force me into signing. Even the pastor, who visited weekly, became a quiet witness when I explained the situation. "You've been wronged," he said gravely. "But God sees, and so do I. Write it all down, and when the time is right, justice will rise. I tucked his words into my heart like armor. December arrived, bringing the bite of winter and memories sharp as glass. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after David had left me in that nursing home lobby, I sat by the window. Snow fell thick, outside, muffling the world in silence. I whispered into the cold glass, "Mark, it's almost time. They think they've won, but they've already lost." Because my notebook was full. My witnesses were ready. My lawyer was waiting, and all that remained was for David and Rebecca to walk through the final door, thinking they were closing it on me, when in truth, they would be closing it on themselves. By the time December's snow piled thick against the nursing home windows, I was no longer the trembling woman who had clutched her suitcase in despair 1 year earlier. I was steady, ready. My notebook was thick, my allies were prepared, and my lawyer had everything he needed. I was not waiting for rescue anymore. I was waiting for the trap to close. And on the week before Christmas, it finally did. David and Rebecca walked into my room together, their expressions tight, their bodies weary. The arrogance that once radiated from them was dimmed now, beaten down by something harsher. Rebecca's perfume still filled the hallway, but her smile was brittle. David's tie hung loose, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He carried yet another folder, his hands trembling as he set it down on the table between us. "Mom," he began, his voice strained. We need your help." I folded my knitting carefully, laying it in my lap. "Do you?" Rebecca spoke quickly, her voice sharp, but tinged with desperation. "The renovations, the loans, we're in trouble. If you don't sign, we'll lose everything." I tilted my head, studying her like one might study a painting that was finally showing cracks. Lose everything? That must be frightening. David swallowed hard. "Please, Mom, just one signature. It will save us." I leaned forward, my eyes steady on his. "Save you from what? The consequences of your own greed?" Rebecca's face flushed. "You don't understand. This is about survival." "Survival," I repeated softly. "Do you know what survival looks like? It looks like sitting in a nursing home lobby on Christmas Eve with a suitcase at your feet, realizing your only son has just abandoned you. That is survival." David's eyes filled with shame, but I saw no remorse. Only fear. I reached into my drawer and pulled out my own folder, thicker than his. I slid it across the table. "What's this?" David asked, his voice unsteady. "Every visit. Every word, every attempt to force me to sign. Documented, witnessed, prepared." Rebecca reached for it, but I pulled it back. "And this," I continued, pulling out another envelope, "is the notice from my lawyer. The power of attorney you tricked me into signing? Challenged? Voided? The deed? Untouched. Still mine." David's mouth fell open. Rebecca's lips parted, but no words came. "You thought I was fading," I whispered. "You thought I was too old, too weak, too broken. But I was waiting, and now the waiting is over." The days that followed were chaos, for them. Court papers landed on their doorstep. Their debts, once hidden, became public knowledge. Creditors called, neighbors whispered, friends drifted away. Rebecca, who once paraded through my home in heels and champagne, now wore the same wrinkled coat week after week. David's shoulders slumped lower each time he visited, until one day he didn't visit at all, and I waited, because the final blow was still to come. It arrived on a gray afternoon. In late November, when the lawyer called me in, his office smelled of paper and dust, but his words were crisp as winter air. "It's official," he said. "The deed is solely yours. The power of attorney is void. And as for your will, secure. Your son and his wife have no claim." I closed, my eyes, relief flooding me like sunlight. But, he continued, sliding a second stack of papers toward me, about the tenancy agreement you requested. I opened my eyes, a slow smile curling across my lips. Yes, let's finalize those. The confrontation came sooner than I thought. David and Rebecca appeared at the nursing home one windy afternoon in December, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. They looked like ghosts of the proud couple they had once been. "Mom," David whispered, his voice cracking. "We have nowhere else to go. Please, let us stay, just until we get back on our feet." Rebecca said nothing. Her lips trembled, but she lowered her head, for once stripped of her arrogance. I studied them for a long moment. My son, the boy I had once rocked to sleep, now a man hollowed out by his own greed. My daughter-in-law, the woman who mocked, me, now reduced to begging. Finally, I pulled out the papers my lawyer had prepared. I slid them across the table. David picked them up with shaking hands. His face drained of color as he read. "Tenant agreement," I explained calmly. "If you wish to stay in my house, you'll pay rent. To me, your mother, the woman you abandoned." Rebecca's eyes widened in horror. "You can't?" "I can," I said firmly. "And I have." David looked at me, tears brimming in his eyes. "Mom, please." I leaned forward, my voice steady and sharp. "You left me in a nursing home on Christmas Eve. You erased my life. You mocked my worth. And now you will pay, month after month, year after year, just for the privilege of living under the roof I built." Rebecca let out a strangled cry. David bowed his head, silent. I signed the final line with a steady hand. "Welcome to tenancy." That night, as the first snow of December fell, I sat by the window of my nursing home room, my notebook closed forever on the bedside table. I whispered into the dark, "Mark, it's done. Justice is done." Because betrayal had tried to bury me, neglect had tried to silence me, but I had risen, not in rage, not in haste, but in patience. And now my son and his wife lived not as heirs, not as owners, but as tenants to the woman they had scorned, tenants to their mother. And with every rent check, with every bitter glance, with every reminder of their fall, they would remember. You don't abandon the hand that raised you. You don't mock the heart that gave you life. And you never, ever underestimate a mother. I closed my eyes, the snow falling steady outside. The pain of betrayal lingered, but beneath it was something stronger. Peace. Because in the end, they had taken nothing from me, but I had taken everything from them.